Welcome you all. What is Deva, the divine? Consciousness or reality is one and all pervading. But there appears to be two forms of consciousness occupying our bodies. One is a knowing consciousness or local or personal or identified consciousness, which is easily dislodged from our body by a relatively mild blow on the head or by anesthesia, a less painful way of doing it. Then there is another called rudimentary consciousness or being consciousness or prana or non-local impersonal consciousness, which knows how to run the body even when the knowing consciousness is gone. The rudimentary consciousness which runs the body when we are out, that is, loose consciousness or asleep or for that matter awake, consists of or reflected in our gross or physical body as well as the subtle or the mind body. The knowing consciousness is a being superimposed on the gross and subtle bodies and using them as vehicles to experience this physical reality. This acts as an observer that includes our mind, interprets our sensory experiences, and gives us our self-awareness as individuals. This is commonly known as the soul or the causal body. Consciousness reflected in mind or subtle body gives it movement. If reflected in just a physical body without a subtle body, like a stone, there is no movement because the degree of consciousness is lot less. Gross and physical bodies are finite, whereas the soul or causal body is infinite. Soul only seems finite and inside or limited to our gross body. It is like a space in a pot versus the space. There is no actual division between the two, only an apparent division. A single cell in our body is relatively ignorant, while the composite consciousness of all the cells in an organ is an intelligent being and an expert in its field. Now, if we put together the consciousness of all the organs in our body, we end up with even a higher intelligent being who is the total consciousness of all the living cells in our body. Now, think of our planet as a big body. We can also say that there must be someone occupying this big body, just as the soul occupies our physical body. There is a consciousness, to be sure a very big one, that is knowing consciousness, the observer or the soul of this planet. Similarly, the sun is a bigger body of consciousness. Its rudimentary consciousness contains or consists the rudimentary consciousness of all the planets, just as our bodies contain the rudimentary consciousness of all our organs. This knowing consciousness of the sun uses the body of the sun as a temporary focus or garage. This knowing consciousness or soul contains within it all the planetary guards and is in charge of them and of the whole solar system. The name given to a being that is the knowing consciousness or soul of any structure is called Deva. The name given to a being that is the knowing consciousness or soul of any structure is Deva. The root word for Deva is Dev, meaning shining. So, Deva means the shining one, divine. Divine, divinity, come from the Sanskrit Deva. Deva is a good short word that means God of a form. For instance, there is a Deva of a tree, Deva of a mountain, a planet, a sun, etc. Sometimes these beings are visible to persons with highly developed sight or the internal eye or the third eye. And people worship these devas or demigods. Devas of natural forces, devas of planets and moons, Deva of sun, etc. But remember, all forms are imaginary. So don't get carried away by the devas and their forms. You may worship them as long as you know that they are not real as their forms. However, if you think that your body and this world are real, Devas are also real. Mind and matter are ultimately imaginary and illusory. Life is an appearance in consciousness, made out of consciousness and known by consciousness. The Deva of an individual body is called Jivatma, the shining principle in us. Consciousness, God, reality, in an apparent moment, the soul. The Deva of the cosmos is known as Paramatma, Creator or Ishvara. Ultimately, Jivatma equals Paramatma. The space inside a pot is not separate from the space outside the pot. All is space only. Then the prefixes Jiva and Parama drop out. Only Atma remains. Another name for Atma is Brahman or reality. Wave is same as the ocean and the ocean is same as the water. It all depends on your perspective, lower or higher. Whether you associate Deva with a body or with pure consciousness. Thank you.